Hello everyone, so this is my first YouTube video. I'm Jacob, I'm proud to be your host today. And today I would like to discuss the question of, do morals even exist? I think morals are incredibly relevant to everyday questions and every debate of everyday life. Now obviously, morals and morality and do they exist or even possible have been discussed a lot and they've been debated a lot. And so I'm not here to provide a definite position. I'm here to provide you with a wide positions whether you can then assess and decide whether or not which one you identify with. And morals are particularly important because we can use them to guide our everyday actions in life. So it's important to establish whether or not they exist. So hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding of the perspectives on whether morals really exist, and maybe you'll have your own answer to this, but probably not is the truth. So first, let's start on moral realism. So this is one of the strongest affirmative positions on the existence of morals. Or moral realism is the belief that morals, truths exist independent of our opinions, feelings, or cultural backgrounds. According to this view, there are objective standards of right and wrong that apply to everyone, everywhere, at all times. So there's a couple different variations and distinctions that we need to talk about. First, at the heart of moral realism is objective morality. This is a belief that certain actions are inherently right or wrong, regardless of what anyone thinks about them. For example, moral realists might argue that acts like murder, theft, or lying are objectively wrong. Even if someone tries to justify them under specific circumstances, the key here is that these moral truths are not determined by individual preferences or societal norms. They exist independently, much like facts and science or mathematics. Proponents of objective morality often argue that if moral truths were not objective, it'd be difficult to criticize actions or practices that are universally considered harmful or unjust, such as slavery or genocide. If morals were merely subjective, there'd be no firm ground to say that these practices are wrong or in any meaningful way. Another strong argument for moral realism comes from our moral intuition. This is the idea that humans have an innate sense of right and wrong, almost like an internal moral compass. Many of us feel instinctively that certain things are wrong, like causing unnecessary harm to others without being needed to be told or taught. These gut feelings suggest that moral truths are embedded in our very nature, hinting at objective reality. Supporters of this view argue that consistency of certain moral beliefs across different cultures and time periods points to the existence of universal moral truths. For example, the belief that kindness and fairness are good, while cruelty and justice are bad. It seems to be a common thread in many societies throughout history. Next is moral progress. Then there's the concept of moral progress, which is often cited as evidence for objective morality. The idea here is that societies can move closer or further away from moral truth over time. This suggests that there are better or worse moral beliefs rather than just different ones. For instance, consider the historical movement towards abolishing slavery or expanding civil rights. Many people see these changes as examples of moral progress, where society collectively recognizes corrects past moral wrongs. If there weren't objective moral truths, the idea of progress wouldn't make much sense after all. If morals were entirely relative, how can we say that moving from a slave-holding society to one that values freedom and equality is an improvement? Next is religious foundations. Many religions teach that morals are divinely ordained, meaning they come from a higher power and are woven into the fabric of the universe. In this view, moral laws are not human interventions, but rather reflections of divine order that we are meant to follow. For example, in Christianity, the Ten Commandments are seen as God-given laws that dictate how people should live their lives. Similarly, in Islam, the moral teachings of the Quran are believed to be revelations from Allah. These religious perspectives lend to strong support to the idea that moral truths are real and objective because they're rooted in something beyond human creation, whether that's a god, gods, or some other spiritual force. In summary, moral realism provides a robust framework for understanding morals as objective truths that exist independently of human options or opinions. Whether through the lens of objective morality or innate moral intuitions, the concept of moral progress, or religious teachings, moral realism argues that there are real universal standards of right and wrong that guide our actions and judgment. So while moral realism offers a compelling case for the existence of objective moral truths, it's important to acknowledge that not everyone agrees with this perspective. In fact, there's significant debate in philosophy about whether these objective morals actually exist or whether they're simply constructs of the human mind. Critiques of moral realism raise important questions. For example, if morals are objective, why do we see such vast difference in moral beliefs across cultures and histories? How can we be so sure that our moral intuitions are reliable guides to truth rather than just deeply ingrained social norms or evolutionary instincts? And what about cases where moral belief seems to conflict? How do we determine which is right if there's no universally accepted standard? These questions lead us to the realm of moral anti-realism, which challenges the idea that the morals are objective or real in any way moral realists claim. Moral anti-realism encompasses several different viewpoints, all of which share the belief that morals are not objective truths, but rather subjective or socially constructed. These perspectives offer a different way of understanding morality, one as it sees more fluid, contextual, and dependent on the human experience. Next, we'll dive into the key arguments for moral anti-realism, exploring how it contrasts with moral realism and what it suggests about the nature of morality. Whether you find yourself agreeing with the realist perspective or you're more skeptical about the existence of objective moral, understanding the opposing views is crucial for a well-rounded grasp of this complex topic. So now let's take a deeper dive into moral anti-realism. So let's start on a broad overview. Moral anti-realism is challenge the idea that morals are objective truths, arguing instead that what we consider to be right or wrong is not universal, but is shaped by human perspectives, experiences, and evolutionary history. This view encompasses several different theories, each offering a unique take on why morals may not be as concrete as we sometimes believe. First, moral relativism is one of the more well-known forms of moral anti-realism. So according to moral relativism, moral values and judgments are not absolute. Instead, they vary depending on culture, societal, or individual context. In other words, what we consider to be moral in one society might be seen as immoral in another. There's no single, universal standard that applies to all people at all times. For example, practice like arranged marriage or capital punishment might be viewed as morally acceptable in some cultures, but morally wrong in others. Moral relativists argue that the differences highlight the fact that moral beliefs are deeply influenced by cultural norms, social condition, rather than by objective truths. The strength of moral relativism lies in its ability to explain the diversity of moral practices around the world. However, it also raises challenging questions about how to judge or criticize actions that seem unjust or harmful when viewed through a different cultural lens. If all moral beliefs are relative, is it possible or even meaningful to say that some practices are better or worse than others? Closely related to moral relativism is moral subjectivism, which takes the idea of moral anti-realism to the individual level. According to moral subjectivism, moral judgments are nothing more than expressions of personal preferences, emotions, or attitudes. When someone says stealing is wrong, they're not stating a fact about a world, instead they're expressing their personal disapproval of stealing. Moral subjectivism suggests that moral claims are inherently subjective, meaning they can't be true or false in the same way factual statements are. For example, saying chocolate ice cream is the best is a matter of personal taste, not an objective truth. In the same way, moral subjectivists argue that statements like lying is wrong are a reflection of individual attitudes rather than universally valid truths. This perspective can help explain why people often disagree about moral issues. After all, if morals are just personal preferences, it makes sense that different people would have different views. However, moral subjectivism also faces criticism for potentially reducing moral debate to a mere expression of opinion, without any way to resolve disagreements. Next is moral nihilism. This takes moral anti-realism to its most extreme conclusion, or moral nihilism. Moral nihilists argue that morals do not exist at all, not even subjective preferences. According to this view, concepts like right and wrong are entirely meaningless. Moral nihilists believe that when we make moral judgments, we're engaging in a kind of fiction, attributing value to actions and behaviors that have no inherent moral quality. For a moral nihilist, the idea of something is good or bad is purely human intervention, with no basis in reality. They might argue that the world is simply a collection of events and actions, none of which are intrinsically moral or immoral. As a result, moral nihilism presents a stark challenge to anyone who believes in the meaningfulness of moral discourse. While moral nihilism can seem bleak, some find it liberating because it frees individuals from constraints of moral judgments imposed by society. However, it does raise concerns about the implications of rejecting all moral norms. If nothing is truly right or wrong, how do we make decisions about how to live our lives? Another interesting approach within moral anti-realism comes evolutionary explanationist. This view suggests that we perceive moral behavior not as a result of discovering objective moral truths, but rather the outcome of evolutionary processes that favored certain behaviors for social or survival or social cohesion. From this perspective, behaviors that promote cooperativism, altruism, and fairness may have been selected because they helped early human communities survive and thrive. For example, being kind and cooperative while others have increased an individual's chance of being supported by the group, leading to better survival prospects. Over time, these behaviors become ingrained as immoral because they were advantageous, not because they were objectively right. Evolutionary explanations offer a naturalistic account of morality, showing how moral behavior could have developed without any need for objective moral truths. However, critics of this view argue that just because a behavior is evolutionarily advantageous doesn't make it morally good. This raises a question about whether evolutionary explanations can fully account for the complexity of moral human experience. Moral anti-realism provides a diverse array of perspectives that challenge the notion of objective morality, whether it be the lens of cultural relativism, personal subjectivism, radical nihilism, or evolutionary theory. These views suggest that morals may not be fixed, universal truths that moral realists believe them to be. Instead, they might be more fluid, contingent on our individual or collective experience as human beings. It's important to consider how these anti-realist perspectives impact our understanding of right and wrong and how they shape our moral lives. Beyond the more well-known stance of moral realism and moral anti-realism, there are several nuanced positions that offer perspective on nature of morality. These theories don't neatly fit into the category of morals are real or morals are not, don't exist, but rather explore the complex ways in which moral beliefs might be constructed, mistaken, or even deliberate and maintained for practical reasons. We'll talk about three nuanced positions: constructivism, error theory, and moral fictionalism. First is constructivism. A theory suggests morals are not objective truths waiting to be discovered, but rather principles that are constructed through social processes. According to constructivists, moral norms arise from collective human activities like dialogue, negotiation, and consensus building. In other words, what we consider to be moral is a direct result of agreements made within societies about how people should behave, rather than reflections of universal moral truths. Constructivists argue that social processes are essential for creating a shared moral framework that allows communities to function smoothly. For example, the development of laws and social norms can be seen as a form of moral construction, where societies collectively decide that what is considered to be acceptable or unacceptable behavior. These constructive morals are real in the sense that they're tangible effects on how people live their lives, but are not objective in the traditional sense. They don't exist independently of human interaction. This perspective allows for a more flexible understanding of morality, acknowledging that moral beliefs can change over time as societies evolve. However, it raises questions about the stability and authority of moral norms, as they are seen mere as social contracts rather than objective truths. Next, we have error theory, a position that occupies a curious middle ground. According to error theorists, people talk and think as if there are objective moral truths, but they're actually mistaken. In other words, while moral discourse is filled with claims about right and wrong, good and bad, these claims are systematically false because they presuppose the existence of moral facts that don't exist. Error theory suggests that while we might believe in moral truths, these beliefs are based on fundamental error in our understanding of the world. For example, when someone says stealing is wrong, there's certainly a moral fact that error theorists would argue don't exist. The belief in moral truths therefore seems widespread but incorrect assumption. This view is particularly interesting because it acknowledges the powerful role that moral beliefs play in human life. Even while denying their objective reality, error theory challenges us to reconsider the basis of our moral convictions and to grapple with the possibility that much of our moral thinking might be based on false premises. Next, we have moral fictionalism. So this is a theory that takes a pragmatic approach to morality. Moral fictionalists agree with error theorists that there are no objective moral truths, but they argue that it doesn't mean we should abandon moral language or behavior. Instead, moral fictionalists propose that we should continue to use moral concepts as if they were true, even though we know they're not. The idea behind moral fictionalism is that morals, even if they aren't real, can still serve important social functions. By maintaining the fiction of morality, we promote social cohesion and regulate behavior and create a stable society. For example, even if the concept of justice is not objectively real, talking about justice and striving for it can help ensure a fair treatment and protect individuals from harm. Moral fictionalism offers a way to preserve the benefits of moral discourse without committing to the existence of objective moral truths. It's a practical approach that acknowledges the power of moral beliefs while recognizing their fiction in nature. However, this position can be seen as controversial as it raises ethical questions about honesty and integrity of perpetuating beliefs that one knows to be false. These nuanced positions, constructivism, error theory, and moral fictionalism, provide alternative ways of understanding morality that challenge the simple binary of moral realism versus moral anti-realism. They offer insights on how moral beliefs might be socially constructed, mistaken, or maintained for practical reasons, even in the absence of objective truths. By exploring these theories, we gain a deeper appreciation of the complexity of moral thought and the different ways people navigate the landscape of right and wrong. As we continue to explore the question of whether morals exist, these nuanced positions remind us that the answer may not be as straightforward as it seems. As we explored throughout this video, the question of whether morals exist is far from simple. We've dived into a variety of positions, each offering its own insights into the nature of morality. On one side, we have moral realism, which argues that moral truths are objective and exist independently of human opinions. Proponents of this view point to the intuitive sense of right and wrong, the concept of moral progress, and the religious belief that morals are divinely ordained as evidence as morals are real and universal. On the other side, moral anti-realism challenges the existence of objective morals, suggesting that we may instead consider that moral is shaped by cultural, societal, and individual factors. Through moral relativism, subjectivism, nihilism, we tell morals are understood as subjective and culturally specific or even non-existent. Evolutionary explanations further suggest that our moral instincts have been developed through survival strategies rather than a reflection of objective truths. And then we explore some more nuanced positions like constructivism, which are seen as morals as social constructs, error theory, which posits that our belief in moral truths is mistaken, and moral fictionalism, which suggests that even if morals aren't real, they can be still useful fictions to maintain social order. So, if this video got you thinking, make sure to drop a comment below with your opinions or any questions you have. I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts and starting a conversation about this topic. And if you want to dive deeper into any specific argument or explore related topics, please let me know and I'd be happy to make a video on it. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. So thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.